Ladies and gentlemen of the nation, what is going on, y'all? Your dude Sly here, and thank you guys for watching another one of my Sly Nation game review videos. Now, I have a couple of games to review still, so there will be more of these kind of videos on the way. However, for today, let's talk about a generation-defining game franchise, Gears of War. More specifically, the recently released Gears 5. When the original Gears of War launched oh so many years ago back in 2006, it was an instant success. Its cover-style shooter mechanics, along with its signature style of graphics, unique weapons, story, and gameplay, made it an instant success. This was coming at a time, when true mature-rated games started making appearances. There's always been blood in video games, but this time, add in lots of swearing, gore, aliens, and chainsaw-style assault rifles, and you have yourself the basis of a great game, and one that really led the way for true mature adult-rated video games. Just like Halo, Gears of War is one of those type of games that has defined a generation of gamers. Everyone in their mid to late 20s all the way up until their 40s will remember the original Gears of War story and the flurry of games that followed within its footsteps. Besides Halo, Gears was one of the first real competitive esport titles out there, and it paved the way for not only how esports would evolve into what it is today, but its structure as well. Flash forward into almost the year 2020, and Gears of War is still delivering its unique style of gameplay, mixed with an intriguing story, gory cover shooter style battles, and unique instances that get the heart pumping. Gears of War is as good now as it was then. A lot of times when carrying over a title, like through multiple sequels, it can be really easy to burn out your audience. For instance, like right now, while I still absolutely love Destiny, I am nowhere near as infatuated with it as I was, say, a year or two ago. I could play Destiny every day, all day, and be completely content just running around on patrol in the open world, looking for secrets and completing bounties. Now, however, I can't play older content for much over 4 to 5 hours before I start getting bored. Gears of War had this exact same issue many years ago when it started burning out its audience with games like Gears of War Judgment, and then the other announcements like Gears of War Exile, Gears of War Tactics, stuff like that. While Exile was cancelled, it seems like the Gears series was kind of becoming watered down, and only continuing on thanks to the hardcore fan base that it had. Well, after some splitting of companies, Epic Games bought the studio named People Can Fly, which is now famous for creating Fortnite, along with Epic of course, and the Coalition, who stopped working on Gears of War games for a number of years, came back into the picture as the sole development studio. It kind of rebooted the series with the move to newer consoles, better graphics, larger story and plotline, and way more attention to detail. You can see how the game changed as soon as the Coalition stopped helping with development. Gears 3 and Judgment weren't the same as the first Gears 1 and 2. The Coalition was one of the studios responsible for the original Gears of War title back in 2006, but was absent from working on pretty much the rest of the titles up until 2014 or so. Since then, they have developed Gears of War Ultimate, Gears 4, and now of course Gears 5, in which an argument could be made that it's one of the better Gears of War games delivered thus far. Gears 5 picks back up where number 4 left off. Things are no longer simply COG and non-COG. There are new characters, new locations, expanded information on other factions, and for Gears of War First, a sort of Mass Effect Andromeda style of open world. Now, it's not quite an open world, but it's definitely not the typical linear Gears of War campaign that we're used to. This new freedom and side missions, which by the way is a first for the series, allows you to discover a new sense of freedom that the other games did not have. While it's nothing so drastic as groundbreaking, it is exactly what this game needed, something different. The Roadie Run, the Lancer, Boomshot, Nasher, Marcus Phoenix, Coltrane, those will always be deep-rooted Gears of War icons. But being able to keep your identity and build off of it while delivering something new, that's no easy task. Gears of War 4 was semi-successful with its overhauled story and expanded universe, but Gears 5 took that torch and ran with it quite successfully. However, the game is still, to the core, Gears of War. Pick up a Lancer, slap in Marcus Phoenix, and throw in a bunch of Locusts or Swarm, and it would be hard to tell if you were playing Gears 4 or Gears 5. The lack of meaningful new weapons or character abilities is a little disappointing, but I can see why they didn't push it too hard as to avoid taking away the iconic Gears feel. Don't get me wrong here, there are a couple of new weapons to use, but a couple is really it, and besides one, the rest of them aren't that memorable. The biggest change is of course your robot buddy, who is now much more useful than it was before. Instead of a glorified locksmith, your little flying toaster buddy has a handful of unique and fun offensive and defensive capabilities. When you're playing on higher tier difficulties, these abilities are a must-have and extremely helpful, virtually necessary. However, in my opinion, It's a little clunky to use in the heat of battle, at least it is on PC. While trying to manage your reloads, which by the way seems to take way more time in Gears 5 than in past games, you have to hold shift and then press the number 2 or 3 so you can scroll through the different abilities you wish to use. Using them isn't a problem, that's pretty easy. It's getting the right one in the heat of battle and using it when it's needed, that's the clumsy part of it. Some tools seem a bit useless while others are super powerful and very helpful, like the shock trap for instance. Once you upgrade it all the way to the end, you can basically put it on the ground and you won't have to fire a single bullet, while others only last for a short amount of time and take forever to recharge. But even though it can be a mild nuisance at times, it's a step in the very right direction and a breath of fresh air. Add in the high-resolution texture pack, updated Unreal Engine 4 graphics, along with unlimited frame rates, and you can tell this is a Gears of War game meant for the future. The funny and at times predictable and corny back and forth dialogue still exists and is as strong as ever, but seems to dissipate once you get about halfway through the game. Either that or I just became so used to it that it just kind of disappeared. Now I was given a review copy of the game, so while the frame rates were fairly high, if you crank everything up to max with the extra high resolution texture pack and everything set to ultra, there are times even my RTX 1080 started to sweat a little bit, and that's at 1080p. There's a little detail in the settings where you can actually change your frame rates of cutscenes, which is not only unique, but I think a welcome change. And since the cutscenes used in Gears of War are rendered in-game, this is when you'll notice the biggest hit to performance, when you're taken away from your third-person perspective and you now have like a floating or following camera, which increases your field of view like crazy. It hits especially hard when your cutscenes are set to 60 frames per second and everything is cranked to ultra. As you can tell in the video, there were also times I had some stuttering or frozen frames, but all in all guys, the game ran really well. Add in the fact that this was a pre-launch edition and a review build, and it did remarkably well. Now without getting into too many spoilers, the campaign is also just classic Gears of War, but with an updated twist. You get to relive and revisit some of the areas used in the first few Gears of War games, and seeing these areas with updated graphics was kind of a bit of a treat for a fan like myself. The tie-ins from older games not only refreshes the memory, but expands on the older stories as well. There are collectibles and letters scattered all over the place, and reading them was a treat for a lore nerd like myself. However, the game isn't all about rehashing the past. It uses the past in clever ways while bringing it into the future. There are a few hard choices to make within the game, lots of hidden achievements, collectibles like I mentioned before, and all the while, you're led into some heart-pounding moments, great boss battles, and at times, a genuine challenge, even on intermediate difficulty. Now at first, intermediate was just way too easy, but as the game progresses, it ramps up quite a bit, especially the harder battles, like including larger battles or bosses. You would be surprised how hard intermediate can become. If you're just getting into the Gears of War universe, Gears of War 5 comes with an awesome sort of catch-me-up video, which you can find under the Extras tab. The Gears universe and the story so far are both awesome videos to watch for Gear War noobs and vets alike. Okay, so moving on to the other areas within the game, such as PvP and co-op. Now, I personally haven't tried co-op campaign to see how it handles, but the PvP and multiplayer side of things is where you'll see either 100% classic Gears of War or a brand new take on multiplayer with modes like Escape. Versus is your classic Gears, to the core, the game style, the gameplay, weapons, PvP modes. To me, it handles just like every other Gears of War game I've played, prior to this one. Simply more up-to-date in the frame rates, textures, and overall look. However, I'm not really a huge PvP player, so I might be oversimplifying it a bit. But in my opinion, if you've played PvP in any other Gears of War games, then you know what to expect within Gears of War 5, just with an expanded list of game modes, new skins, and stuff like that. So next up, Horde Mode. Now, Horde Mode is a wave-based multiplayer mode that builds on top of the success of the last Gears game, Gears of War 4. The object here is to survive ever-increasing in difficulty waves of enemies while building up fortifications, stocking up on weapons, etc. New maps, new areas, and a more streamlined menu helps make this mode a fun one to play, but my favorite so far is definitely Escape, where you have to plant a bomb within a hive and fight your way out before the bomb detonates. It's a more high-paced game mode and it can become extremely fun. Now, as for the future of Gears of War, once you play the campaign, you know without a doubt Gears 6 is on the way. But in terms of keeping players occupied, there are weekly events, monthly updates, and larger content drops every 3 months. They have it outlined here fairly well. But on top of all of the goodies that come with Gears 5, community map making is also a standout feature. In terms of bang for your buck here, guys, you really cannot go wrong. There's campaign with solo and co-op achievements with multiple difficulties and 4 different types of multiplayer modes to enjoy. You have Versus, Escape, Horde, and community-made maps. Add in the weekly events, monthly updates, and DLCs, and the life of Gears of War 5 is only getting started. If you're a member of the Xbox Game Pass, then it's a no-brainer here. You need to download it and play this game ASAP. If you're not, I'd highly recommend becoming a member first and then buying the game later once it becomes a bit cheaper if you don't wish to keep up your membership. Because as far as Game Passes go, the Xbox Ultimate Pass is a pretty damn good deal, at least in my opinion, especially since it covers Xbox and PC games. However, just like all the other game services such as Uplay Plus, Origin Premier, etc., once your membership runs out, all those games you once enjoyed will no longer be playable. So there is definitely a catch to this, but it really is a good deal. However, if you're a hardcore Gears of War fan, then buying this game is also a no-brainer, guys. Gear 5, it kind of starts out slow, and you really couldn't tell much of a difference between Gears 4 and 5 at first, but after the first act is over, things improve by leaps and bounds, and it just gets better from there on. If I had to give Gears of War 5 a number rating between 1 and 10, I personally would put this at a 9 out of all of the Gears of War games, but in general, as a game, solo by itself, a solid 8.5. The campaign is quite lengthy for what is mostly a linear campaign, but the newly added gameplay elements and mechanics, along with an evolving story and plethora of options to keep you busy once the campaign is over, and this game is definitely worth checking out and even buying. It's a good thing the Coalition came back into the picture after Judgment and sort of, rebooted the franchise, because as I see it, it's in pretty good hands. And while it could use a few upgrades to things such as armor or even character upgrades or paths, I know it'll be a fun time regardless. So yeah, that's about it, y'all. Like I said, the game starts off a little slow, but if you hang in there, you will be rewarded. Once I got to the second act, I noticed I was pulling all-night gaming sessions, and that's a hallmark of playing a good game. If you yourself just started playing it or finished it by now, let me know your thoughts by commenting down below. Was it good, great, bad, boring? Let me know down below. Anyways, guys, I am out of here. As always, thank you all so much for not only watching, but for supporting Sly Nation. The Gears of War universe is massive, and there's no shortages of reviews out there, so thank you for coming here and sticking around to watch mine. It really does mean a lot. Spank the thumbs up, but only if you enjoyed yourself, and if you wish to check me out on Twitter or Facebook, it's at Sly Nation on the tweets or Sly Nation Gaming on the FB. Keep those eyes open for more game review videos, as well as a lot more Destiny 2 Shadowkeep videos coming out here soon, as they will be my main focus for the next few months, as Shadowkeep releases October 1st, so definitely stick around for that. But until then, this is your dude Sly, and I'll catch you all next time.